Hi, I'm Craig Stevens. Welcome to Out in Houston. Today we'll be devoting the entire episode to a topic that is often very problematic for many gays and lesbians, and that topic is coming out, revealing the truth about your sexual orientation to those around you. To discuss this with me today is Greg Caisson, a mental health educator at the Montrose Counseling Center, and also a person that has had a lot of experience in helping gays and lesbians with this process. Just as a footnote, Greg is also the first coordinator of National Coming Out Day, which is October 11th. Greg, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Craig. It's good to be here.
Let's talk about coming out in terms of the process that we as gays and lesbians undergo when coming out. How do we first come out to ourselves? I guess that's where it all begins.
Well, I like that you said it's a process, because coming out isn't just telling somebody you're gay. In fact, a lot of people think that is all that you do, or telling your family, or having sex for the first time, or a relationship. But coming out really is a process, and it does start with ourselves. I think we start with the stirrings when we're very, very young, and we notice that we're different, and we start to feel that we're attracted to people of the same sex, the same gender as ourselves. And then we start to discover differences in ourselves from other people. Now, what we do about coming out to ourselves well before we tell anybody else involves things like reading books on the topic on being lesbian or being gay, going and seeing a movie perhaps, maybe even meeting a gay person but not revealing your own sexual orientation. And the process goes on. It's all a part of our identity formation, and in fact, the process never stops. We're all coming out all the time. Even after we've told everybody around us, sometimes we have to, let's say, walk into the local Kroger and for some reason we find ourselves coming out to somebody, and we never stop coming out.
Well, let's take it back then just a moment. You mentioned that you are, of course, coming out to yourself first before you can obviously disclose that to another person.
Right.
So let's talk about the dilemma then when you finally do decide to come out to another person. Probably, I would assume it would start with your family and friends first. What goes through a gay or lesbian person's mind when deciding, I'm going to come out now?
Gosh, a lot of things go through your mind. I think it's very, very scary. Probably a lot of people don't tell their family or friends first. Probably a lot of people tell someone who they don't even know, because it's a safer person. Some people call hotlines and tell someone on a crisis hotline so that person doesn't even have to see them, so that it's completely anonymous. Some people go in to see therapists and will tell the therapist. Some people will do it in a bar, so it's someone they're interested in. But what goes through your mind is, will this person reject me? Will they not like me? Will they think I'm bad?
Okay, so there's that fear of judgment and evaluation about that?
Yeah, and it's a very big fear, and we have to get over that. I think it's a small process that we take one step at a time, and to get to even that point of telling somebody else, we have to learn to really respect ourselves and really like ourselves enough so that we can share ourselves with someone else.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've always known I was gay. It's something that I've known for as long as I can remember, and I've always been the kind of person that has this mindset and knows what he wants to do. And it was very tough in high school for me, because there are sort of things I wanted to get done, and I wanted to get into a good college, so I was concentrating on school, and dealing with the fact that I was gay was something that I really didn't want to deal with. I knew that I was gay, but it's something that I would have thought would have held me back a little. And so I remember what I used to do is, there was this program on Saturday nights, this gay radio program, and I was afraid that my parents would hear me listen to it, so I'd come back home early when I went out with my straight friends, and instead of listening to it on the stereo, I would get my alarm clock radio and turn the volume real low and put it under my pillow, and then I could barely hear it, and I was still afraid my parents would hear it. And that was the first opportunity that I got to listen to other gay people, and to know that you could be something and make something of yourself and be gay.
How do you do it? When do you decide that I'm going to come out, let's say, to my mother or my father or something along that nature? How do you do it? When do you do it? Let's discuss the actual process of the revealing to the family members, for example?
Well, I think that the coming out process actually can't be dictated too strictly. Some people come out or tell their family, let's say, when they're 15 years old, and the family accepts them with warm, loving, open arms. One gentleman I know waited till he was 69, had grandkids and a career in the military, and when he was 69 said, well, I'm coming out now. I'm going to finally come to terms with what is inside of me and bring my outside reality together with what is really going on inside. And he came out of the closet basically and started to do it. How you do it, it is a step-by-step process. If you haven't accepted yourself or done some reading or maybe gone to see a movie or seen what other gay people are like or met some, you may have a real problem just running up to your mother or father and saying, oh, I'm gay. You probably wouldn't even know what to call it. You would probably say, I'm attracted to people of the same sex, who knows. So you have to do a lot of exploring yourself, and you have to really kind of be at that point where you're ready to tell them and be ready to risk the rejection, perhaps, that they're going to have. Because remember, you may have been going 7 years, 10 years, maybe 30 years dealing with your own sexual orientation, and if you're telling somebody who has no suspicion of your sexual orientation, they're going to go through that process, and it may take them just as long. It usually doesn't, but it may take them quite a long time before they can come to accept something, you know, because they're seeing you differently for the first time. It's as if your old self is suddenly gone and your new self is coming to fore, and it's almost like the process of grief that you go through when someone passes.
I guess just speaking as a gay man, it seems like that's just one more part of yourself that's revealed to them, so you often want to think, or at least I want to think, well, why does it make such a big difference now that you know this one other factor about me that you didn't know before? But I guess you're saying that it really does change their perception of you, and then obviously they have to go through the grief process, or the same process that we went through when we first discovered that that truth about our sexual orientation.
Right, and understand that you didn't change. If a gay person comes out, there's really not a whole lot that's different except that they've said it publicly, or they've come to terms with themselves, or they feel a little better about themselves, or whatever. They're a little more comfortable with their identity. But other people's preconceptions of who you should be are going to have to change. And other people's stereotypes of what gay people are had better change, because the stereotypes in this society are very harmful. And usually people that have those negative stereotypes don't know someone who's lesbian or gay.
Right. It sounds like implied in what, or implicit in what you're saying, therefore, is the need for strong role models in the gay and lesbian community.
Absolutely.
When I came out my sophomore year in high school, I met this woman, and I thought she was, you know, the most beautiful person I had ever met in my life. We never established a relationship. We were just friends for a very short period of time. But I realized what strong feelings I had towards her. And I decided, okay, that sounds just about right. Being gay, I think that'll suit me fine. And, you know, I went with that. In making that decision, I had to break up with my current boyfriend.
I just wanted to give you sort of a scenario that may be very typical for a lot of gay teens, for example. Let's say you're a gay teen living in a very restrictive family because of religious beliefs. They feel like that they condemn homosexuality. And yet you feel like, I really want to tell them because I want them to know who I am. I want them to love me for who I am and accept me. In that type of situation, would you say, go ahead and tell them, or wait until you can build that support network, or elaborate on that for a little bit?
If somebody doesn't want to tell their parents because they're afraid of getting kicked out of the house, then maybe that isn't a good time to tell their parents. If somebody doesn't have that fear, or that isn't a reality, their parents have unconditional love for them and will love them no matter what is going on, then perhaps that is a time. We really have to look at the total conditions of what's going on. If you're going to tell your parents that you're lesbian or gay, you've got to know your parents very well, and you've got to know the situation and know the reality. There's a organization here called the HIPPY, or Houston Institute for the Protection of Youth, that deals very much with kids who were kicked out of their houses because they were gay, either because they came out voluntarily or it was discovered. And that's very, very unfortunate and a situation that should be avoided, always avoided.
That's true. I was going to also mention the group Hatch as well, Houston Area Teenage Coalition for Homosexuals. I think would be very instrumental in helping with those issues as far as being a teenager and also identifying yourself as homosexual.
In fact, a group like that might be good to go to before you tell your parents. And usually in those groups you can go to anonymously, and you can explore your identity, you can talk with other people before you have to even make any kind of statements about yourself, absolutely. And you can get a support network going and find out what other people's experiences are before you go and tell your parents. Usually your parents, unfortunately, and parents know this, aren't always the first to know things.
Okay.
I'm very grateful for Hatch because what it does is it gives you positive role models, people that are your age and people that are older. And it lets you know that you can be gay and you can be something, and you don't have to fit all the stereotypes society puts on you. If you want to be a lawyer, it's fine. You can be a lawyer and you're gay. If you want to be a politician, you can be a politician and be gay. You can be a businessman and be gay. And that's what I'm grateful for, what Hatch has done. And it's an organization that's doing that for a lot of youngsters in this city, and I hope it will continue to do that.
I found the community when I entered Hatch. I went to my first meeting, and I was home. I was where I had always wanted to be. I was received with the warmest of welcomes, and it was family. It felt really right. And it was then, at those meetings with those people, that I realized this is not only where I want to be, but this is how I want to live my life, whether I'm here at this meeting with these people or not. I want to be this comfortable. I want to feel this love. I want to be this okay with it, no matter where I am.
I also want to just take this a little further. As an adult, we often face the dilemma of coming out at work or other situations, of course, and so often you'll hear people say, well, why do you have to tell us about your sexual orientation? What you do in the privacy of your bedroom is your own business. Talk about that for just a second, of why we need to come out. What's the point?
Well, I think that what you do in the privacy of your own bedroom is your own business. I never discuss my sexual practices with somebody else, or even how long I sleep at night, usually. But being gay is not about what goes on inside one room of the house. Being gay is our whole selves. That really is the process of identity formation and feeling good about who we are. And at work, if I say I have a partner, or I want to bring my partner to a function at work, am I throwing that in their faces? I would say no more than they're throwing being heterosexual in my face when they have a partner that they're very proud of, that they love very much, that they have kids that they're very proud of and love, and they want to bring their family to the work function. Those kind of things when you treat things equally, when you discuss sexual practices, perhaps the workplace isn't the best place to talk about those things.
Then take it again one step further and talk about outing. That's a very controversial subject within the gay and lesbian community. And how do you feel about outing?
See, I don't think outing is coming out. Coming out is a process from within.
Okay.
And when you come out, you're really bringing your inside to the outside. Outing is really reaching in somebody else and pulling them out. A lot of outing, too, was just to say, look, we're not invisible. I mean, there are actual real people, famous people who are gay, and if they want to admit it, we will. That's what those organizations say. Personally, I don't believe it's good for the people who get outed. It hurts them. And I would wonder if what is going on with the person who's doing the outing. But in the case of the advocate, they pointed out a very important irony that we need to be aware of. Sometimes gays themselves can be our own worst oppressors. and that is when they are hidden in the closet and they are so ashamed and so view themselves so badly that they take their anger and their shame out on other gay people.
Okay. Just shifting focus for a moment, I wanted to ask you about the importance of support networks when finally you decide to reveal that truth about your sexual orientation. I would just like to throw out a couple, for example, PFLAG, or as I mentioned, Hatch earlier, or even the Montrose Counseling Center, which you're affiliated with. So talk about that for just a moment. Share with us the importance of having that support network around you.
Absolutely. There's no even reason to be a gay or lesbian person if you're not going to have at least one other gay or lesbian person to be with, to share your affections with and love. And that's not just sexually or not just intimately, it's also friendship and camaraderie and sharing common values and common ideals and a certain community sense. Certain organizations, Montrose Counseling Center has not only social but also has psychotherapy, and that's good for people to deal with in an affirmative sense. A lot of people go to therapists who are either going to put them down for being gay, and that's extremely unfortunate, or number two, the therapist will be sensitive to what being gay is, but they won't be affirmative. They won't say, you know, that's okay who you are. In fact, who you are is a good person, which is a real shocking thing for a lot of gay people to hear. And it's something that needs to be said. So that's why something like the Montrose Counseling Center is very good, and there's several other gay therapists as well.
Coming out was very happy experiments. Of course, until my father found out. I had an opportunity to get out of town that summer. I was 15, I think. And an opportunity to go to a Christian camp, an all-girls Christian camp, to teach backpacking. And of course, I turned it down at first. But when my father found out things had gotten so heated in the house and his rage and stuff, I decided it might be the best thing to do is go to this Christian camp for the summer. And I did, and it was horrible. I came back very gay, even gayer. And things still were pretty bad until I was sent to see a therapist that my reverend at school had sent me. He was gay.
I realize, of course, that it's very controversial right now with many of the churches that decide to create programs that want to change the sexual orientation of their members. If their members come forth and say, I'm a homosexual or I'm gay, lesbian, whatever, help me to change that, put me on the, quote, the right path. Talk about that for just a moment. What do you think the damage is?
Well, that kind of practice is considered unethical by almost every psychological and counseling organization, social work organizations, American Psychological Association, American Psychiatric Association, all view that, American Counseling Association, as an unethical behavior. So for those organizations to be doing that, they have to be operating out of the lines of professional psychology, professional counseling, and social work. It's very dangerous because you're basically tinkering with someone. Usually people don't want to be lesbian or gay because if they are, I mean, let's face it, most people aren't. Most people are heterosexual, and there's not really a problem with that. But for the people who are gay and dissatisfied with that, one has to ask the question, is that something that's wrong in the person or something wrong in society that's viewing the person negatively and bad? It's almost as if coming to a therapist as, you know, a person of one racial identity, perhaps, and saying, I want to change racial identities. It's not an easy thing to do. In fact, I don't know that it's possible. I don't know that it's possible to change someone's sexual orientation. It's never been proven in any of the accepted literature.
I think that the best and greatest thing that ever happened to me was the March in Washington in 1993. Living 3 entire days, the way I had wanted to live all my life, was the greatest experience of all. You know, that's how I wanted the rest of the world to be like. And I came back from that march knowing that I was going to do everything I could ever possibly do to make it happen, to make that society that existed there for that weekend the society that I live in, no matter where I am at. It was like being born again.
Any other comments that you'd like to make in helping a person that may be watching today's show garner the courage to come out to themselves or ultimately to those around them?
Let's just put coming out is a process. Coming out is not jumping out. Coming out is a process, and it goes in a stepwise progression. So what we had is, as our slogan in National Coming Out Day was, take your next step. Wherever you are right now, if you haven't told anyone, if you haven't done anything, but you haven't read a gay book, pick up a gay book and read it, or pick up a magazine. If you haven't told a certain friend and you've told almost everyone else, maybe that's the next friend to tell. Maybe if you work, at work, a good thing to do is maybe put your lover's picture on the desk, you know, or all those little things, wear a gay button, just little steps that you can take, even sending an anonymous check to a lesbian or gay organization. Those kinds of things actually help us with our own pride and our own identity.
Thank you for joining us today on Out in Houston. I hope this was beneficial for you, and I hope that you can stay tuned for other episodes.
Patricia was 25 when we found out that she's lesbian. We had suspected for about 3 years before we found out. And during that period, it was very hard for us because nobody dared ask the question.
Vince was 14 when he first came. He came to us and just told us. We just sat down and had a really good conversation.
I got a call when my son Mick was a senior in college. And he told me he had something really important that he had to tell me, but he couldn't tell me over the phone. And honest to God, I thought I was going to hear I was going to be a grandma.
I remember going and getting in the shower, behind the shower curtain, and just screaming, because it was the thing that was the most precious to me, my children, and that she'd been tarnished in a way that I could never repair.
I went through a lot of the same things that a person goes through when somebody dies. It was disbelief, shock, some grief, anger at the situation, not at Vince, just, anger at the world.
I started to know probably in grade school, around 3rd or 4th grade, but as I was living life as me, I probably didn't know until high school, when other people were saying it about me, that I became consciously aware.
It was mainly in high school that I started feeling like something was really different about me, and it was when I was a sophomore in college that I was attracted to a friend of mine and started having a relationship with her, and I knew that something was different.
There are a lot of people who will say that homosexuality is a sin, and they'll point to particular biblical passages, but I think, while most of them are sincere, I think they're sincerely wrong.
And it's frightening how much misinformation there is. And I would like to be a part of bringing the truth about the homosexuals to people, anywhere, at any time.
The group with the largest number of new cases is teenagers. And the fastest growing subsegment of the population with new cases of HIV are heterosexuals, men and women.
This is a very weak virus outside the body. It's a very strong virus inside the body. And this is why insertive behaviors such as sexual contact or sharing needles are how it gets transmitted, and be very difficult for it to be transmitted, if not impossible, any other way.
Why didn't our side get heard? Why didn't members of Congress have at least as much pressure from the gay community and their friends and supporters around the country as the merchants of hate, as the so-called Christian right and the organized right wing?
You didn't choose it, you can't change it. Again, you could write with your right hand, but it doesn't make you right-handed if you're left-handed. You're still a left-handed person. Sexual orientation is essentially the same.
Can you see this 11 or 12-year-old who wakes up one day and says, you know, I think it would be really fun to be, you know, hated and persecuted all my life, to have my parents think about rejecting me, to not be welcome in the church, and to be afraid of losing my job if I'm exposed. I think I'll be gay. I mean, can you imagine anybody making that kind of a choice?